Buddy, I'm seeing 1 p.m. Central Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so glad to see so many of you logging onto the call, and I'm just going to go through some little announcements and just kind of housekeeping before we get started. And there might be a few more joining us today. But if this is your first time to a CSTP offering, welcome. So glad that you are here. And my name's Jenny Parker. I am the coordinator for all things sort of CSTP related. So if you have questions or if you are wanting to get more involved, you can always reach out to me directly and I can answer any questions you have or provide any more information. But so glad that you all are here and so excited for our topic today. I am going to be popping just some helpful links in the chat as we're getting started, and I'll kind of go through those if this is one of your first times at our conference calls, just to give you kind of a lay of the land here. So the first link goes to our contact information form. So if you'd like to join our distribution list, I promise we will not be spamming your email. We just send out our quarterly newsletter and then our invites to calls like this conference call and a networking call that I'll kind of give a little bit more information on in a second. So if you'd like to be added to that list and get those kind of reminders or little newsletters in your inbox, you can click that link and join there. The second is for a submission form. So if you would like to get more involved in CSTP and perhaps you'd like to write something for our newsletter or present at a conference call like I'm doing today, you can fill out that form. And even if you just have some ideas, it's not a concrete, ironclad agreement. It's just a little message to me to say, maybe reach out to you and we can kind of talk through some things. There is also an option on there that I always like to highlight where you can be interviewed by me for the newsletter. So if you want to share some news or something exciting, or you have some ideas, but you just find that you don't have the time to sit down and write an article, no worries at all. We can sit down. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and I'd be happy to hear kind of what's going on in your department, what's going on within your organization that you'd like to share with everyone. So that's always an option too. And like I said, things kind of can get busy for everybody, especially it can happen all at once. When it rains, it pours. So if you fill that out and then all of a sudden you're swamped and you want to circle back later, that's just fine too. It's absolutely no pressure, but I always love to hear from all of our CSTP members. It's a great way to connect. The next link is to the registration for our next networking call. That will be in April. And those meetings are different from a conference call. Our conference calls are where we have kind of a more formal presentation. The networking calls are just to connect with one another. So it's an open floor. You can come and just listen. You can come and kind of type anything in the chat, or you can come with some questions for others. And if maybe there's something that's going on within your own organization that you're wondering how other states or regions or tribal nations are handling that, it's just a way to kind of bring people together. And so I always recommend kind of getting started with that, especially if you do have questions. And especially if after today, you find that you have some follow-up questions that we might run out of time for, then come to the networking meeting and I'd be happy to go on even more of a deep dive. Our next two links are for our newsletter archive and our conference call archive. And so those are just all of the past newsletters. You can go through and kind of navigate, see what we've done before. Or if you remember there was an article and you were like, I can't find it in my email, but I want to revisit it. You can go to that archive and they're all kind of laid out pretty simple and easy to go through. Same thing with the conference call archive. We record all of our conference calls and share them. And especially, the day kind of gets away from you sometimes. So if you have to log off early or anything like that, don't worry. The call will be recorded and then shared with everyone. The last kind of section, and I know we've had a few more log on, so I'm going to share these links again in the chat just in case you missed them, uh, is information on Thrive. So the APHSA has set up this wonderful LMS, which we'll be talking kind of about what learning management systems are and kind of how they can be of use. And so they've set up a really wonderful LMS that has all kinds of free, completely free resources for anyone that's working in child support training or really human services. That's again totally free. There's nothing they're trying to sell you on for it. So they did one of these conference calls, and I thought it was such a great like opportunity, and again trying to build that connection. So they have learning communities on there where you can kind of have an open forum, and if you have a question you can type and talk to other CSTP members. So they have set one up for us, and I have a link there to go to their login page. You can create an account, and then there's an access code. And when you type that in, you can join our learning community. And so that conference call recording, that kind of walks through what Thrive is. So if you're curious and if you want to know more or how to get an account made, you can look at that. Or like I said before, you can always reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have or provide any additional information that you might need. So I know that was a lot to get through. Thank you for hanging on with me while as I went through all of that. But again, I'm so happy that you all are here. I see some new names, I see some familiar names, and I'm just so glad that I'll be able to talk to you all today. And I see, Janet, you're blocked by the Department of Justice. So we can maybe take a look at that. But yeah, if you do have any like technical issues or something like that, please let me know and we can see what we can do to help you gain access. So with that, I'm going to get started with our presentation today. So I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully you all are seeing this now. So today I am presenting on instructional design basics. This topic came up, well, it's come up kind of a few times at a lot of our networking calls. Actually, a lot of people have questions on different training modalities and ways that people are providing training to their staff or how they're designing trainings. And so today what my goal is just to provide kind of a bird's eye view and just like some basic overarching information, and then we can go a little bit into some of the like more intricate details on especially like online asynchronous trainings as we kind of go through. And if you have any questions at any time, please, I'm looking at the chat, and you can always come off mute if that's easier than typing it out. And please stop me at any point. I'm happy to answer any questions I can. And while we're going through, we've got kind of some topics laid out. So if there is something that you would like kind of a deep dive on, I have a little poll at the end. So keep it in mind and let me know, because I would be happy to kind of center in on one of these topics. Or if you are somebody that has a lot of information that you'd like to share, you can always volunteer to be one of our presenters at these conference calls. It doesn't only have to be from me. So I'd be happy to hear about what you all think and kind of different techniques and ideas that you have been developing within your own area. So I'm going to add a little participant guide to our chat here. So this just has the slides and kind of the text typed out. So if you have any trouble or need to use a screen reader or anything, you'll be able to kind of follow along with that guide. That can be helpful sometimes. So we are first, though, going to start off with a Mentimeter poll. So if you have your phone handy, and that's an easier way to do a Mentimeter poll, I've got the QR code here. Otherwise, on our next slide, you can open a tab and just go to menti.com, and then it has a little code. And so when I scroll down, we'll be able to see that. So I'll give just a couple more seconds so that if you do want to do it on your phone, you can grab that QR code. Otherwise, I will scroll down, and if you want to join in your web browser or even on your phone again, you can go to menti.com and then type in this code, and you should be able to look at this question. So this goes back to that modality question. What methods do you use to deliver trainings? I kind of want to find out from all of you where you're at. Maybe you're only sticking with in-person, maybe you're only doing virtual sort of webinar trainings, or maybe you're locked in on completely asynchronous, not a lot of other offerings, or maybe you're doing all of them, or maybe you have kind of something else that you're offering. So let me know kind of where you're at within your own department. And I just would like to know so that as we're going through, I can kind of make sure I'm not missing anything for the ways that you all are delivering your training. Yeah, so now you should be able to see the Mentimeter. Thank you. So yeah, we have a little bit, mostly all of the above. Everybody's kind of trying to do it all. We've got a few asynchronous, a few just in person. This is excellent. So I am going to come back to our slides here. So yeah, so these are our results. So now that I know a little bit about you all, and feel free to kind of let me know in the chat if there still is anything that you'd like to tell us about in your own work area. I just wanted to share a little bit about me and kind of why I am delivering this training today. Like I said, in a lot of the networking calls, we get a lot of questions about that. And so, like I said, I'm the CSTP coordinator, but my real job title is an instructional designer with Iowa State University. And so we have a contract with the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services, and our larger child welfare research and training project within Iowa State University offers a few different areas within training, outreach, and research and the Department of Health and Human Services. But the team that I work on specifically is to provide training to child support, which is why I have sort of inherited
Yes,
coordinating. Anyways, so yeah, I am an instructional designer, and I am currently going through the instructional design certificate program within the graduate school at Iowa State University as well. So it's something I'm really passionate about, but I consider myself to be a lifelong student. I know that there's always more to learn. And so, like I said before, these are some of the techniques that I use and some of the approaches that I use, but I would love to know more from all of you on kind of what your take is, or again, if there's a kind of software or things that you'd like to talk about, please let me know in the chat too. And so with that, it can be kind of overwhelming. I'm sure a lot of you have found, and I know that I have, but on where do I start? So it can seem so overwhelming, especially if you are facing kind of a complete overhaul, like Kevin mentioned in the chat, about revamping all of your training. Maybe you're moving from an in-person to a virtual offering, or to an asynchronous offering, or vice versa. So it can be kind of confusing on where to go from here. And so one of the things that I tried to develop for this presentation was sort of a skill tree with some kind of check boxes that you could kind of go through. And again, this is kind of just the approach that I have used. And when I was reflecting on kind of my experiences as an instructional designer and working within the state and with the child support team, kind of where did I start? How did I develop my skill set? And, like, what do I kind of revisit over and over again as I'm kind of going through my own professional development? And so I have a skill tree, and I'm going to also share a little PDF copy in the chat as well so that you can have it and kind of follow along during this presentation. Or if you are new to instructional design and you are practicing your skills, you have something that you can kind of check off as you're developing your own training. So just kind of a fun way to look at that. And so with that, we'll really kind of get started here. So we've got our skill tree, and we've got kind of our level 1, the more basic, level 2, a little bit more into the development side of things, and then our level 3, which I kind of put as kind of, these are the icing on top of the cake for a training. These are kind of the fun, creative elements that can be a little tricky sometimes. So I really just thought this would be a good place to kind of, again, give a bird's eye view, kind of an overarching look at things. And then if we have time today, we can kind of go more into detail if you do have specific questions, or if there is something I can show you. And if there's something, these all could be their own presentation on their own. So I first wanted to start with the ADDIE process. And so if you have been doing instructional design for a while, this will be really, like I said, kind of a basic review. But if you're just new to instructional design, the ADDIE process stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. And so this is a procedure that's been adopted by a lot of instructional designers. It's kind of like the first thing that you learn. And with the team that I work on specifically, and I think I saw Holly join our call too, and she is also an instructional designer on our team. This is really kind of the process that we follow internally as well, and as we're working with our contract partners. And so it can be really helpful. A lot of times starting, we'll get kind of a notification of a training need that's been identified. And so we'll do kind of an analysis, try to figure out learning objectives. What do we need to do? We work with an interdisciplinary training team. We call it ITT, and they're all subject matter experts. Everyone's kind of bringing their own experience and knowledge to the team. And then we are able as instructional designers to take that information and put it together in a format that can be used like on a learning management system, or delivered in an in-person training or a webinar format. And so the ADDIE process, some people often describe it as linear, and it is kind of a linear process. And sometimes I think it can catch a little flack for that. But I often think of it as a more iterative process. And so yes, you kind of follow along with the analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate, but as we are creating trainings, we're often revisiting, we will analyze, design, develop something, and then we'll have a review, and then we'll kind of go through an analysis of the responses and what was working and what wasn't, redesign some elements of it. And, even when we implement something and evaluate, we take that into consideration for the next trainings. And so I kind of like to think of it as a more ongoing process. There's been some trainings that we have implemented, and over time have found through the evaluation process that some updates can be made, that some kind of part 2s can come out from that. So I'm sure that it's very similar for all of you in your departments as well. It just feels like you're never done with training. There's always more to learn. So that's kind of an overview of the ADDIE process. And it can be a really helpful kind of starting point if you are looking at getting into instructional design. The next topic, and I won't spend too long on this because I'm sure most of you are aware of writing learning objectives, whether it's, for just a quick, 30-minute presentation, it often starts with those learning objectives. But if you are new to them, Bloom's taxonomy is a great place to start. And there's kind of a hierarchy here of create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand, remember. And there's a lot more in-depth charts that you can find online that give sort of actions that can be taken. So as you're writing those learning objectives, what do the participants, what should the outcomes be? So it just kind of provides some great verbiage for you as you're writing those. And I know that when I was getting started in training, this really saved the day for me because I was like, learning objectives, what even is that? Where do I even start? So this is kind of a good place to start. And I'm sure many of you have had to write numerous learning objectives before. So the next part of our kind of level 1 overview are learning management systems. And this has been another topic that's come up quite a few times for folks. What is an LMS? How does it work? What is kind of the purpose of it? And so every organization is different. I know that in the state of Iowa, kind of different state agencies adopted their own learning management systems. And then a few years ago now, there was a kind of a statewide movement put into place to get everybody that was kind of working under the state government, DOT, HHS, that sort of thing, on one learning management system. And they each kind of had their own page for it. And so there wasn't crossover where there shouldn't be, and we couldn't access materials that we shouldn't be accessing. But it kind of got everybody in one place. Everything was found in one location, and it kind of just helped organize things within the state. And so there's a lot of different learning management systems out there. I've kind of listed some of the more popular ones, some of the ones that I've used before. And so there's like Canvas, Workday Learning, Moodle, LearnSoft, Thrive. And like I said, there's, a ton more out there. And so each one is a little bit different, and some of them kind of cater to different needs. So like LearnSoft, for example, I had used it when I was working at a long-term care facility, and they had a lot of options specifically that were designed centering around healthcare workers and professional development, especially for folks that were keeping up their nursing license, medical license, that sort of thing. And so it just depends on your organization and what your needs are. But learning management systems can be a really useful tool. That's what can house a asynchronous module. So if you're stepping into wanting to create something like that, having a learning management system is where you would house those and where it can be delivered to the staff within your organization. But they also can be used to organize attendance records, completion certificates, even for in-person trainings as well. As I mentioned, that long-term healthcare facility that I had worked at, the majority of our training was delivered in person, and we still put everything in our learning management system. We could send out reminders, we could send out registration for staff through that. And so even I think it gets kind of associated with those online modules, and that certainly is, what it is tied to, but it can still be utilized for any training that you're delivering as well, and keeping track of those records, which I know can be a lot of work. So if it's something that you haven't quite taken the plunge on, it might be worth looking into. And of course, I'd love to know if there's other learning management systems that you're using in your area that you really like or really aren't sure about. We can always talk about that as well. And I'd love to find out in the chat too. So our kind of level 2, this is kind of if we're following the ADDIE process, we're getting into that designing and developing phase. We have our authoring tools. And so again, I've just listed a few. There's so many out there, and there's so many integrations that can be put within authoring tools. I have found in my experience that the Articulate suite is kind of the most popular. It's also what I use, what our team uses. And again, if you are just getting into instructional design, or if you're still learning things, Articulate has a really great sort of community forum called eLearning Heroes, and people can make posts on it, get questions back from anybody else who is on it. You can also get tips and tricks delivered to your inbox. And so I kind of subscribed to that right away, and I still now, even after doing this job for a few years, I'm still will find myself, how do I do that? How do I get that? And so it is nice that there's such a community of professionals, training professionals that are using this, that can kind of provide templates, provide workarounds if something isn't working correctly, and give feedback directly to Articulate to make kind of continuous improvements on their end. So that's one. And for this presentation that I'm sharing with you today, I utilized both Storyline 360 and Rise to deliver these slides, as well as kind of some other tools as well. And so we also have the Adobe Suite. Now, Adobe does have a program called Captivate that has also been a popular tool, and people still are using that. However, the majority of their tools I use as kind of integration. So if I want to create a video to go in a training, I usually will create it, edit it in Adobe Premiere. If I want to add captions, I usually will do that there as well. And then I'm able to export that and utilize it within. Same thing for Photoshop or, InDesign, something like that. You're able to kind of use that and then pop it into training. And then Canva, I always like to mention Canva, because if you are a beginner, or even if you're, a seasoned professional, I've been using the Adobe Suite for too long, 12, 15 years now. And I have loved using Canva. It's really easy. The interface is really user-friendly, and you can create a lot of professional materials, again, for both in-person, online training. There's video editing software in there. There's slide decks. And I've started to notice that Canva is trying to get more into the sphere of creating asynchronous modules, creating things that are compatible with the learning management system. And so I think that they're really kind of prioritizing professional development and training. And so it's just a really handy tool. Even the free version has so many options. So you don't need the pro version to get started. It's really easy to use, and like I said, user friendly. And I have found that sometimes if I just need something quickly, it's much easier to go through Canva than kind of start from scratch in Adobe. So like I said, there's lots of tools, and we'll be talking about a few more as we go through, but these are kind of the few that popped out to me as kind of the beginner where to get started. The next topic is on course creation. So let's say you're working, you're getting your LMS going, you're going through the ADDIE process, you're finally ready to start using some of those authoring tools and get started. So I just wanted to show kind of what Articulate looks like. So if it is something that you haven't had a chance to use before, or the options are new to you, this is in Rise, and that was some templates that you can use once you have the software. And Articulate does require a license to use, but there are a lot of materials. And so this is just an example of a template that they have that's available. So you can see it's a lot of already made. You just click and you can type in kind of what works, what your verbiage is, and it's already kind of made, and you can go through. So this is an option. And you can see kind of some of the things that they offer within it. It's kind of easy to just click, click, click. Or if you want to create a course from scratch and kind of play around with it, I wanted to show that as well here too, and I'll kind of scoot forward so you can see it. But it really is just like a click. And it's easy to delete things. It's easy to move blocks around, but they have all of these options: quotes, images, lists, interactive elements. And so I kind of just went through just to kind of show what was available. And so Rise really can be a really simple way if you are just getting started and you are wanting to put something online. But like I mentioned, if you are like, yes, we have the license, we're already using it, I'm kind of familiar with it, we like it, it is something that can be used even for like a webinar, right? This is what I'm using today for my presentation. So, you don't have to limit yourself to just thinking, okay, this is made for an online module. It's a presentation is a presentation. And so sometimes it's nice to find multi purposes for some of these tools that we have, especially if you've already paid for it and you already have the license to it, you might as well find other ways to utilize it. So this is just an example of kind of what that looks like. And then again, Canva does have a lot of slide options, a lot of slide templates. And so this is me just kind of showing what is available there, and that again, it would need to be kind of packaged into a SCORM to be able to be put on the LMS. But it is something that you could use for an in-person, and there are ways to kind of import slides if you have a template you really love in Canva to like Storyline or Rise. So that was just a quick look at that. And then the next thing that I wanted to talk about was accessibility. And so this has been really a topic that I know there's so many people that are true experts on this, and I will not claim to be an expert by any means, but I do think it's something that should be at the forefront of your design and development. We had a wonderful conference call last year from one of our CSTP members talking about the web accessibility, web content accessibility guidelines. And she did a wonderful job, and it's linked in that participant guide. And then I also just wanted to show a lot of software now are developing kind of automatic checks for that web content and for those accessibility needs. And so this is in Canva, and I'll kind of back it up a little so you can see, but they have just this accessibility checker that's really easy to find. And then it'll check your design accessibility. You can see here I'm opening the panel, the typography passes, the color contrast passes, alternative text is needed for some of my images. And so if it's decorative, you can mark it and it'll take it out of your list. So like those little clover things. And then if it is something that needs a description, they offer it there. And it can be offered, of course, in whatever way you're delivering it. I also just wanted to show as well, this is something that is a little bit new to me, but I've been loving it. There is a contrast checker browser extension. And again, that is linked in that participant guide. And there's directions on, you can use just the web page and bookmark it, or you can bookmark the web extension. And that's what opens this little dialog box that you see here. And it brings up the color picker. You choose the colors on your screen. I'll demonstrate it here. And it will tell you if it passes the web content accessibility guidelines, the requirement for that color contrast for normal text, large text, and then non-text elements. And so you can see here the black over the light blue gets a pass. And so that's just kind of a nice way. And I'm kind of showing like a bad example. If I had white text over the blue, it would be a fail. It's not enough contrast for people to see. So like I said, accessibility definitely at the top of everyone's minds, and should definitely be at the forefront of any designing that you are doing. And so, and like I said, there's so much to learn about it. I'm learning new things every day. And so again, if there's ways that you try to make those trainings more accessible and tips and tricks you have, please share with any of us, because I'd be happy to hear more from all of you. But the conference call that we did on those accessibility guidelines and some of these internally made checkers can be really a good place to start and be helpful if you're just like, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So yeah, those are kind of our level 2, just getting the basics down. And then level 3, I have multimedia elements, gamification, and hands-on. So I always think this is kind of the fun tier, I guess. This is where it's like all the, kind of creative elements are coming in. And so we've got multimedia elements here. And again, we had this was now a couple years ago, I presented on incorporating video content and captioning into trainings. And so if you missed it or if you want to revisit it, that conference call can be found in our conference call archive. And it's kind of a nice way, it's kind of a deep dive into getting videos in your trainings, just something to kind of break up the slide by slide, add something a little bit different to your trainings, and that can be kind of a helpful guide. And then I also wanted to show how I got this Mentimeter poll in, which I know gave us a little trouble at the beginning, but we've got it down now. And so this is in Rise, and you can see here I selected that multimedia block from the block library. It automatically embeds just kind of a, template holder, placeholder. And then I will go to the Mentimeter site and get their embed code from their share and just copy it and paste it into the Rise software and click enter, and then it adds it. And there's some options, some settings that can be changed as far as kind of the look and feel go. You can kind of change the background color, you can add an image behind it, that sort of thing, kind of how much space you want above and below, things like that. But this again is just like, it shows really how this is kind of in real time, how quick it is to just add something like this to the training. And so and this could be for anything that you want to embed from online. And so there's a few really easy ways to kind of add some of those multimedia elements. And again, you can be creative in how you're delivering it, whether it is an asynchronous course, whether it is a webinar like this one, or even, an in-person if you're presenting and you don't want to have to change screens, although be prepared. You might have to open another page and be able to show kind of without having to move all around. So that was just a way to kind of show how to add those multimedia elements. The next one is gamification, and there are so many resources out there. As I was preparing for this presentation, was looking, where to get started. Mentimeter, just because we've kind of showed it. There's a lot of templates, especially in their pro account version. I made this in the free, so it's, there's still a lot you can do with the free version, but in the pro version, there's like leaderboards that you can make. There's, getting feedback, especially if you're in some of those longer trainings, like an onboarding where it's, maybe a few days of like 8-hour trainings, all in person, and you're looking for ways to kind of wake people up in the afternoon after lunch or something like that. There's also Kahoot is a really popular tool that's used. There's a lot of free templates online that people have created in PowerPoint that you can download. There's like Jeopardy templates and Family Feud and all kinds of stuff. And so if you, again, are getting to the end of the day and you're like, we got to do something to bring everybody alive, that's a way to utilize it. And then this is another new tool that I recently have found out about called Breakout EDU, and it will create a virtual lockbox. So, or like one of those kind of locked rooms that you have to solve kind of little quizzes and puzzles to be able to unlock. And so if you're looking for a virtual option, to especially in like a webinar setting or even an asynchronous, and you want to do kind of a lockbox activity, that's a tool that's available too. And like I said, there's so many out there, but I just kind of, with this presentation, I think it can be really overwhelming with like where to start and what to even, like, what do you even look up as you're trying to get started? And so these are some tools that I've used and I've kind of started with, and I think it can be really helpful. And then the last topic is hands-on activities, kind of like the learning objectives. This is probably one where I am sort of preaching to the choir. I am certain that you all are well aware on how to add hands-on activities to your trainings, but it is something that I think is really important, and there's ways to adapt hands-on activities that perhaps you are using in your trainings to another modality. And so I just wanted to talk about a couple of options here. Of course, there's breakout rooms to where you can separate people into small groups if you are doing a webinar like this one. And there's Miro boards that are really popular, or any sort of like virtual whiteboard. I know Zoom has its own virtual whiteboard, and I think Teams does as well, and Teams has breakout rooms as well. So there's ways that you can kind of get everybody to draw something or sketch something or kind of collaborate in real time live, even if you're not in person. And then this other resource I just wanted to share. There have been some trainings done by the Stanford D School, and I have kind of subscribed to their mailing list because some of the trainings that they offer, it's not always specifically for instructional designers, but it can certainly be applied in that way. And so I have found, I went to a training, they have a series of books that they've published to help with designers of all kinds, or just to help with really creative thinking or coming, brainstorming different ideas. And one of the books that I read was this Creative Acts for Curious People. And there, again, it's not like made for instructional design or really for presentations. It's all about really creative thinking. And every like page in it is activities that you can do with a team, that you can do for team building, that you can do for getting people to think outside the box. And so, because it's not a resource that's often mentioned when you're looking into instructional design or trainings, I like to recommend it to people because I've just found there's so many activities that can be so helpful. And really, like I said, I really enjoyed reading it, and it was easy to kind of go through. And so if I'm ever wanting to deliver a training and I'm kind of stumped on what can I come up with, what can I do, how can I make this engaging for people, that's kind of a place I go to say, like, what's in the book, what can we do for it? So that's kind of an option as well. But like I said, everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with all of the icebreaker games and different ways to get people to building towers or doing something kind of silly, but then finding how to work together as a team. So yeah, there's just different ways to kind of transition those activities virtually or in person. And if you are looking for something different that isn't, if you're looking online and you're getting kind of the same results, this I think is a really great resource. So uh, lastly, I just wanted to come back. And so we kind of made it through our skill tree. And like I said, as you kind of go through, if you're, learning, going, using authoring tools or going through course creation, you can kind of use this as a little fun guide and take notes or something on it. I always like to have something like that where I'm like, all right, let me get organized for this. So thank you. These are the main things that I wanted to share with you all. And I know it's not into the nitty gritty, it really is a bird's eye view. But then I lastly just wanted to, again, try a little Mentimeter poll. We'll see if it keeps open for us this time. But I wanted to hear from all of you and see if there were topics that you wanted to deep dive, or learn more about. And of course, you could pop in the chat if you want to share information about any of those topics. And you'll find them here on our Mentimeter slides. So I kind of went through and paired some of these together, some of those more basic topics, some of those foundational topics, and then some of those kind of sprinkling on top. And so, yeah, I hope that this was helpful. I just found that when I was starting out in instructional design, it was really hard to figure out like what is even out there. You don't know what you don't know. And so I just wanted to have everything kind of in one place to kind of get us started and knowing that, we can have more conference calls like this one where we can hear from some of you maybe, or, I'd be happy to talk more about some of the tools that I've used before as well. So if this is something that you're interested in and you'd like to learn more, let me know. And with that, I also will open it up to any questions. If there was something that you want to see more closely or that you did want questions answered on, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer any question with the time that we have left. Here we go. Now I'm getting some feedback coming through. So yeah, I'm glad that some of these are of interest for you. And yeah, gamification is something new that I am, again, lifelong student learning about too. Definitely something that my classes, as I'm working my way through that certificate program, have been talking about as well, because it's a great way to engage learners. Like I said, are there any questions that I can answer for anybody? Is there anything that you'd like to pick my brain on before we're out of time today? Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, thank you for those of you that have written in the chat. And I'll hang on here for a little bit, but this is what I have for you today. And so, like I said, feel free to get a little bit of your time back and go on to the next meeting. I'm sure you all have packed days, but thank you again all so much for joining me today. And like I said, reach out anytime with any questions, suggestions, ideas, or just additional information. I'm always happy to hear from any of the CSTP members. So thank you all so much for being here.